If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. And he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Get your mouth shut. Get your mouth shut. Jerk.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
If worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to Word Hole Media presentation of the Limp Ditkas podcast. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Limp Ditkas podcast. We're just a couple of Chicago pricks united by our hatred of University of Michigan football and the Chicago Bears. We have a very special show, as I believe this is the first time, at least this season, maybe ever, where all four of the teams we cover did not lose this past week.
Yes, that's 2 weeks in a row for the Lions.
Correct. Did not lose. They have not lost in November. Actually. we'll get to that. We've got tons of college to talk about. The whole world is revolving around Michigan State and eventually in Columbus, Ohio this weekend. We've got some Notre Dame creeping up in the standings to talk about. We'll get into our Limp Six, our top 6 teams in the country. We've got maybe a new segment at the end of our college discussion. We've got your Dallas Cowboys dominating in, what is this, week 11, week 10?
That was week 10. That's
week
a
10?
statement. It's called a statement game there, right? It's a statement game.
We have another sad chapter in the Lions 2021 story. Not as sad as others. It's a confounding game last weekend in Pittsburgh. And we've got another new segment that I might be debuting at the end of the show. So stay tuned. So let's go ahead and kick this motherfucker off. Well, like I said, I think the college football world is revolving around Michigan State right now. And as Mel Tucker is rumored to be signing a massive extension that would make him the second highest paid coach in college football behind former Michigan State head coach Prick Saban, as I like to call him. That rumor's been flying around for at least a week now. I saw that a week ago that they were close to signing him, and there were no terms at that point. And subsequently, that is leaked out that they are close, and he may have actually signed as of this morning. It seems kind of crazy how many details are out there. 10 years, $95 million. So if this hasn't been signed yet, I don't know what the hell Mel Tucker's waiting for. This is a perfect scenario for him, as can capitalize on an incredible, unforeseen season. Nobody expected this out of the Spartans. 9-1. Going to Columbus tomorrow with the chance to possibly beat the Buckeyes. We'll get into that breakdown later. And be on their way to the National College Football Playoff. That opportunity is still out there. So it's funny because this was the big topic, and of course, in Detroit Sports Talk Radio all day yesterday. And there's plenty of people saying how risky this was and how this is might be a bad idea for the Spartans to sign Mel Tucker, who's only been there for a year and a half. He's only won 11 games now in his 2-year career, 2 seasons. Before that, he was a 500 coach. All of a sudden, they're throwing almost $100 million at him. And my argument is, who's taking the risk here? It is this salary is going to be paid by what the media was calling 2 successful alumni. They're talking about a couple of billionaires. Former Matt Ishby, I think, is one, a former basketball player of the team who started a mortgage company, and he's a billionaire. I'm not even sure who the other guy is, but needless to say, they have a lot of money, and they are paying the bill. I'm sure Michigan State is paying some of this, but the reason this is happening is because two boosters essentially are gonna pay him. So if somehow this season is an anomaly, and Mel Tucker flames out and is not what we hope he is, the risk lies in lies on these billionaires who probably don't give a shit about $95 million. They wipe their ass with $95 million every week. I don't know. It just seems ridiculous for Spartan Nation to be wringing their hands like, oh, this could be a big mistake. There's no downside to this at all. If he ends up being what we all hope he is, what he seems to be right now, is a fantastic coach of the future. They locked him up when, teams like LSU and even USC were rumored to be going after him. They've stopped that from happening, and it might turn out to be the wrong decision, but it doesn't hurt anyone. If he flames out, they just buy him out, let him go, and get a new coach. So that just made me laugh when people are worried about that shit. But
yeah, I think people just are ignorant and don't realize where the money's coming from. And they think it's like the school solely investing in it. But you know what? Even if the school was footing the bill,
yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
This goes into all sports, and we'll get into this on our baseball podcast. People are so worried about what owners and universities and institutions spend. It's not my money. Who gives a fuck? Especially in this situation where it's just a couple billionaires that love their school and want their football program to be a player on the national stage, and they just accomplish that.
You don't spend money except on giving the students tuition, scholarship. So you're not really like, you got to invest in the coaches.
Yep.
That's where you have to spend your money in college football.
It is a big investment,
and they get more than enough money with all the TV revenues and everything. So,
well, it just makes you realize how much money is being thrown around there that we don't even understand, how that these kind of astronomical numbers are happening, with Nick Saban and everybody else. Every coach in the Big Ten makes, I think the minimum is $4 million a year. So
yeah, that is kind of crazy compared to how it used to be. But
there is so much money in sports that we don't need to worry about this. So it makes me laugh when people are.
And let's be honest, I think part of it's fueled too by all the rumors out there about other people who are interested in them. Lock it down. Why put it at risk? You got a good thing going. He seems like a good fit for the program. Granted, I get the argument like it's only his second season, but it is his second season, and he's already been able to do this he doesn't have a draft class yet. He doesn't have a Mel Tucker draft class. We're 2 years away still. Yeah, we don't have his recruiting class yet.
Yep.
We haven't even seen that yet. And he's taken this team to as you pointed out, something I didn't see coming. So
well, he's taken this team to Columbus, Ohio to face, what are they, number 3 in the country? Ohio State. And unfortunately, I think things are going to go pretty poorly.
They're 4 in the playoff.
Are they 4? Okay.
Yeah, they're in the playoff right now.
They're those meaningless.
Yes.
The college football ranking or the playoff committee.
If the season ended today.
Yeah. Ohio State, of course, has 3, not 1, but 3 of the top 7 wide receivers in the Big Ten. Michigan State, on the other hand, has the worst pass defense in the nation, not just in the conference, in the nation. That is not a good matchup. But we have seen in the history of this rivalry, Michigan State has pulled off the massive upsets in Columbus, actually. As recently as 2015, under Mark D'Antonio, they eked out a final second field goal win over then number 2, I believe, Ohio State, in a rainy rock fight. So that was fairly recent history. Further back, you may or may not remember this, but in 1998, a heavily favored Ohio State team lost to my Spartans. Spartans were a 28-point underdog, went into Columbus, won the game. I was actually at the gin mill. Oh, do you remember the gin mill in Chicago on Lincoln Avenue?
I watched a heartbreaking Lions loss.
A Lions win over their Cowboys.
Yeah,
I think that was
it was like a slow death.
That was the last time I think you and I watched a NFL game together. But In 1998, the Gin Mill, that wasn't even called the Gin Mill then. They had changed their name to High Tops or something by that point. But in 1998, it was the Gin Mill. I had just moved to Chicago the year prior, and I found a Michigan State / Detroit Red Wings bar, maybe a Detroit Lions bar. It definitely wasn't a Tigers bar because nobody was watching the Tigers in 1998. I can tell you that. Rainy Saturday afternoon, one of the greatest bar experiences of my life, as no one is expecting State to do anything, of course, as the 28-point underdogs, much like this year. Went into Columbus, hung tough with them, and actually just beat the shit out of them by the end of the game. The defense really stepped up. I don't remember any of the players' names, but it's the first time in my life, I don't know if you've ever experienced, but somebody bought the bar a round of drinks after that game. It was such a raucous, fun atmosphere. Just incredible. Have you ever been bought drinks?
I don't recall.
The Gin Mill's not a big place, but there was probably a couple hundred people there. So whoever fit the bill was a high roller. So I appreciate that. Got that memory for the rest of my life. So those are about the only things I can look to possibly think that the Spartans might win this weekend. It is just a terrible matchup. So I'm not expecting much, but I'm not expecting much considering last weekend's game against Maryland. Spartans did, pull away, and it looks like a blowout. 40-21 is the final score, but really Maryland is they just shot themselves in the foot over and over again with turnovers, penalties, and I think pretty bad coaching in general. And they looked pretty shaky. That's the only reason that they couldn't take advantage of State's poor secondary. But on the plus side, Peyton Thorne threw for close to 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. The real story, of course, is KW3, as I like to call him, Kenneth Walker III. But his real nickname's K9, Kenneth K, and 9 is his number, and it's a dog. But I always thought KW3 was way cooler and way closer to defining him. Anybody with a K in their name could be number 9.
Number
Not
9?
many people could be KW3. But he ran for another 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is easily the Heisman frontrunner now, leading the nation in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, rushing yards per game, which he's up to, I think it's 149 yards a game, which, to put things in perspective, that is better. That's 10 yards better per game than Derrick Henry was in 2015.
Yeah, I know. I saw that stat. That's crazy.
I couldn't believe that. So this should be a blowout, even though I'm hearing like Alabama's quarterback and somebody else might be the front runners, which is just horseshit. I mean, this is a historic season for KW3. So
yeah, I'm with you. I think that's all just, SEC fans jabbering and supporters. I mean, I don't see any reason.
Well, it's also the bias towards quarterbacks in the Heisman, which I think is getting ridiculous. It used to be just running backs, and then recently it's been all quarterbacks. So fuck that. It needs to be KW3. I think that's all I have, as I've yammered on and on about the Spartans. Did you want to get into your Fighting Irish?
I would love to get into my Fighting Irish, who just went into Virginia, the toughest game left on their schedule, a winning team, and held them to 3 points. The defense, which had been shaky against every team over the last 2 weeks, has allowed a total of 9 points. Notre Dame won 28-3. It was a very efficiently played ball game. You kind of had hoped they put a little more points up on the board offensively. But the thing about this defensively for Notre Dame is Virginia came in with the number 2 ranked passing attack in the country in college football at an average of 380 yards per game. They're not a very good running team, but they sling the shit out of the ball. With an average that high, you sometimes don't really know, like, is it the stat within the stat? Is a lot of that in some of that in garbage time and stuff like that when you're racking up more numbers. But still, to hold them to 3 points on the road in their home stadium is, I think, a pretty decent accomplishment for a team that is now 8-1, and the only team within our LDP, who's the only team who has one loss to an undefeated team. Every other team has a loss to a team that's lost.
That's a good stat. You might need to bring that up in a minute here.
I am going to bring that up in a minute. They've got Georgia Tech at home this week, and then they have Stanford following, both like well under 500. I think
Stanford did beat Oregon earlier this year, so that's the one thing.
That's their claim to fame right now.
Are you going to Stanford?
Yes.
Okay.
But Georgia Tech's coming to South Bend, 1:30 Central start. Should be a laugha. So I've got Notre Dame at 10-1 going into this thing, and they are going to have a strong argument when you look deeper into it, into them getting into the top 4. An argument that I've been presenting, but I looked up a particular statistic. It lends even more credence and merit to it now, after I've found this statistic that I don't know why I've been remiss in looking up prior to this. So, something I've been yammering on about is how weak the Big Ten is, and strength of schedule and all that good stuff. And it turns out, you can look up the RPI rankings for all of college football. And here's some numbers that will kind of put things in perspective. Of the top 10 strength of schedule ranking is as follows. I'll cover. Notre Dame has the 3rd toughest schedule behind Georgia and Alabama. Ohio State is behind Notre Dame at 4. Cincinnati is 5, which could be the reason they're not getting as much respect in the actual playoff polls. Michigan is 6. Oklahoma State is 7. Oregon's 8. Mississippi is 9. And Michigan State is 10 in strength of schedule in the RPI. Oh, that's just the RPI rankings.
Yeah, that's different than strength of schedule.
Strength of schedule, Michigan State is 116th.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Notre Dame is 37.
Okay.
Alabama is 90, and Georgia is 42. So these type of statistics, if anyone's even looking at these, will be their road into, as we were talking about, that's their road into the playoffs.
Well, this is perfectly timed because we might as well get right into our debate about our Limp 6, our LDP top 6, as we remedy the errors that the College Football Playoff Committee makes every single fucking week, and come out with our own top 6 rankings. As of last week, the only team that lost is Oklahoma, so we can knock them out of our top 6.
Out.
So that basically just shuffles everybody up. I think we can obviously say that Georgia is number 1, Cincy is number 2 as the 2 undefeated teams of note. Number 3 would be Oregon. Number 4 would be Ohio State. Number 5. Oh, I'm getting this confused, aren't I? Who am I missing?
You haven't said Alabama yet.
Oh, Alabama's number 3. That's what I missed.
Yeah,
that's great. I love that.
I'm like, is he sure? Oh yeah, Oregon 4.
Yeah, Alabama would be number 3. I love that. I just forgot about Alabama. That's perfect. Oregon number 4, Ohio State number 5. So that leaves number 6 up to debate for you and I. And you've already laid out your argument for Notre Dame quite eloquently. Nice job by you. The only thing I can say is basically, what is your best win on this season? I mean, who's the best team you've beaten? And I kind of don't know.
Well, I don't know. We beat Purdue, and you couldn't by 2 touchdowns.
Well, just play my game at least. Like
I just wanted to get that in there.
I mean that is the blemish. That's where you're going to win, and strength of schedule and all that. But who have you beaten? I guess is the only thing I can say.
We beat Wisconsin when they were the 19th ranked team in the country.
Yeah, and they've gone to shit, but. Actually, they've been better lately, but they were terrible in the first opening part of the season.
They have the 7th ranked strength of schedule in the country, so maybe that's part of.
So Wisconsin, I think Wisconsin is your best win. Of course, Michigan State's is Michigan, and you can poke holes in Michigan, and you can poke holes in that game as they had to come back from 16 points down, gloriously coming back from 16 points down with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. I'm just pointing that out just for the argument, because I think I am gonna agree with you that at least in our poll this week, Notre Dame should be number 6 ahead of Michigan State, so that makes, I mean, we don't even do 7 or 8, but I'll just say State would be 7, and I would put Michigan at number 8 as the committee refuses to figure out that those should be reversed. So I guess, are you going to make an argument that Notre Dame should be higher than Ohio State or Oregon or Alabama?
Not yet. It's coming.
Okay. So that's why I think
Baby
we can.
Steps.
That's why I thought we could agree on this. I just wanted to put the talking points out there at least.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, to your point, like their best victory, like just from a like tough quote unquote opponent was Wisconsin at a neutral site. So.
Oh yeah, that was at Soldier Field, wasn't it?
Yeah. So.
Well. The whole thing, this is an argument for week 11 or whatever we're in right now, because Michigan State, if they beat Ohio State this weekend, they're going to move ahead of a lot of teams, including Notre Dame. If they lose, they're out of this discussion. So it's all fun for podcast nerds like us. So
do real quick on that. So let's just roll whatever scenario. Let's just say. Ohio State beats both Michigan State and Michigan. Who plays for the Big Ten championship?
It'd be Ohio State and Wisconsin.
Oh, it would? All right.
I think Wisconsin.
Or
Iowa. I'm not sure. I don't pay attention to the Big Ten West hardly at all. But yeah, that would be Ohio State would have most likely beat the fuck out of whoever was in the Big Ten championship game. They'd have another win. So they'd move. I could see them moving to the top 2 pretty easily if they run the table from here on out, even with that loss against Oregon. Speaking of Oregon, they're playing Utah. I think they're at Utah. 24 this week.
Yep, exactly.
So I think they're going to eliminate themselves this weekend, and I think there's a chance that Cincy actually eliminates themselves because they have not looked very good. They struggled against Tulsa last week or a couple weeks ago. They're not looking like a juggernaut, and we're probably very much overrating them, making them number 2, but we can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, I mean, we're giving them kudos. I mean, winning 10 games in a row is a feat.
Yes. Yep.
Especially for a school that never won on the road against a ranked team.
Yeah.
That alone they deserve. Even though we can admit that Notre Dame has been consistently inconsistent this year. Yeah. They still went in there and won. And the offense had been putting up a lot of points to hide the problems with the defense at the beginning of the year, but not that day. So.
Well, I mean, I think Cincy, like I said, I think they might be primed to eliminate themselves from this discussion as soon as maybe this weekend as they play SMU, who's really the only like tough opponent left on their schedule. But I think it's possible that they lose there and then we don't talk about Cincy anymore. And then we're having a completely different discussion as of next week. So that's all I've got for the top 25, unless you had anything else on that.
No, I was another, the playoff committee show should be roughly 15 minutes, guys. Look what Smitty and I can accomplish. And
just listen to us.
We bring out facts. We bring out real statistics.
We talk about the games that were actually played on the field, not the way we feel, as opposed to the commissioner of this fucking playoff committee or whatever his chairman said, well, irrespective of the games on the field or what you're watching, we felt like Michigan is better than Michigan State. He said it for 2 weeks now.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Don't even. He's telling us not to watch the games, essentially.
Yeah.
So
he's saying the games don't matter.
Yeah. We're not saying that. We're saying the games matter. Watch the games. So
Hey, you know what this
seems
is,
to be the
Smitty?
right position.
This is the paper argument on paper.
Ah, yes.
But it's actually playing out. It's resulting in real life,
Yeah,
but the real
because
life
of these-
doesn't mimic the paper.
Well, real life is clickbait, according to this playoff committee, which again, it doesn't mean anything until the final rankings. So they can have their fun and create controversy because all this is meaningless until that final ranking.
Exactly. But let's have fun with it while we can.
Well, I did mention Michigan briefly, and at the beginning of every show, I talk about how we are united by our hatred for Michigan.
I thought their season was over.
Well, they did go into College Station. No, what is it called? I always forget where Penn State plays, but they beat a fraud of a team, the Penn State Nittany Lions, and Michigan is propping themselves up, thinking they beat a juggernaut because they rarely win at Penn State. So I literally was before the game even started, I was calling this the Fraud Bowl because I think both teams are complete fraud. Both coaches are specifically frauds. I've always called Jim Harbaugh a charlatan, and James Franklin, the Penn State's coach, is the quintessential charlatan. As you know, he's famous for getting beat in overtime by Illinois this year, and then thinking he was still playing Illinois the next week when he was actually going to be playing Ohio State. He referred to Ohio State Stadium as the Big House.
I forgot about
in that
all
same
that.
press conference. He's just used car salesman, if you ask me. But of course, you know, I've always called Harbaugh the Har fraud, as he's parlayed luck literally by having Andrew Luck as his quarterback, maybe the best college prospect of all time. At Stanford, parlayed that into an NFL career where he was lucky enough to have an offensive coordinator that developed the RPO and had Colin Kaepernick as his quarterback, and no one knew how to defend that gimmick at the time, and parlayed that into a Super Bowl appearance, and then took his dream job in Michigan and has subsequently lost every big game basically they've ever had, including the last two against Michigan State, 10 out of 14. He's 3-4 against Michigan State. So he has won a couple. He has a losing record against Michigan State, and he has never beaten Ohio State. So congratulations, Michigan, winning the Fraud Bowl. There's two other funny notes from that game. Jim Harbaugh's pants actually caught on fire during that game as he was standing too close to one of the space heaters on the bench. And one of his players had to point out that his pants were actually on fire. The other amusing part of this is that Michigan was supposed to be wearing all maize, which I don't think I've ever seen before. Maize pants, maize jerseys, maize socks.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was a strange look. But James Franklin, the fraud himself, put the kiboshers on it. And I guess it's the prerogative of the home team's coach to approve or disapprove of the visiting team's uniforms.
It's always been a weird rule.
He would not let them wear maize, which I can't think of a pettier, weird thing for a head coach to be worried about. But he would not let Michigan wear maize. They had to wear white jerseys, which I actually think is one of their best looks anyway. So whatever the subterfuge, the shenanigans, the mind games that James Franklin was trying to play by fucking with their uniform selection did not work, as they lost 21-17. So just an amusing thing I wanted to bring up on our stupid podcast, because I thought that was such a stupid game. Stupid coaches, stupid opponents. Fun to talk about, fun to make fun of.
Stupid faces.
Yeah, punchable faces. Final segment for the college football this week before we take a break. I want to make this might become a weekly segment. I'm going to call it the Maxim Minute.
Oh boy.
Yes, that's the perfect reaction I was hoping for from you. My Central Michigan Chippewas, my alma mater, actually have won 2 games in a row. They became bowl eligible last week against against Kent State, winning their 6th game. They won their 7th game Wednesday night at Ball State. So they will be going bowling. The main story I think I brought up when they beat our arch rival Western Michigan a few weeks ago was Khalil Pimpleton, running back, 2 punts for touchdowns. But the real story that I have failed to mention so far when I bring up Central Michigan is their freshman running back, Lew Nichols. He's actually Lew Nichols III. So there's a lot of thirds in mid-Michigan that are dominating the running game in the country. Lew Nichols, you might not know this, but he's actually leading the nation in rushing yards. That's only because he's played one more game. He was third, but he was third in the nation going into Wednesday night's game. He has basically in the last 2 weeks run for 434 yards and 7 touchdowns. So you might start hearing the name Lew Nichols. He's a little kind of a fire plug of a running back, but the big thing that stuck out to me is that he's a freshman running back at Central. So I think you're going to be hearing more about this guy as he's been dominating the MAC and temporarily has the nation's most yardage rushing. So that's my Maxim Minute. I hope I kept that to 1 minute. Did I go over?
I didn't time you, but that was tolerable. So
all right.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, we got through that. So let's go ahead and before we get into the professional ranks, let's take a break here on the Wordhole Media Network.
Wordhole Media.
Major League A-Holes in the Hole podcast, where baseball opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and most of them stink. Find us at MajorLeagueAholes.com and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Wordhole Media.
Hey, welcome back to the Limp Ditkes podcast, and we're talking a little Cowboys football. Who last we talked, it was it was a down week overall for this podcast. Yeah. The state had lost, Lions had lost, or Lions didn't play. The
Lions were on the bye week.
Lions are on the bye week. The only bright spot was Notre Dame's victory over Navy, which whatever. But anyhow. But the Cowboys at home just were like shell shocked by the Denver Broncos, and I bring that game back up because
down 30-0 at one point.
Yes, and thank you for some garbage touchdowns that led me to fantasy football victory that week.
Nice.
By Dak Prescott. But the real thing that came out of that game, the press that came out of the game, and everyone was glamming onto was the fact that the Denver Broncos defense had just given the NFL the blueprint on how to beat the highest scoring offense in the NFL. They gave them the blueprint, and all you had to do was follow their scheme, and the Cowboys, the jig was up for the Cowboys. And everyone across the country sort of jumped on this. Cowboys haters in the press were all over it that this could turn their season upside down. Well, that was not the case because maybe you need the players to execute it. Maybe it was just a bad game, and it was definitely a bad game by Dak Prescott that day against Denver a couple weeks ago. He was off, his throws were off, but I said that's no excuse for the loss. You have other components in that game, and the Cowboys just did not execute, and Denver kept them off balance. The Cowboys were not happy about that loss, and they took it out on the Atlanta Falcons this past weekend, beating them 43-3. And I think the 43 points isn't surprising because they're averaging 40 points at home, except, they had the anomaly with the Denver game. The part that is even crazier about a pro football game, usually when a game gets that out of hand, a team tends to score some late points because your defense is playing soft. But Dan Quinn, who probably felt of this as a little bit of a revenge game after getting fired by the Falcons, did not let up defensively, and they held an offense who just came off of a comeback win over New Orleans the week prior to 3 points. I mean, it was the game you wanted to see as a fan.
Well, you broke their offense because they scored 0 points last night against the Patriots. So
yeah,
something's happened.
Yeah, and it was like it was unbelievable. The Cowboys got their block punt again, except this time it turned into a touchdown for them instead of a turnover. So like there's games where things just don't go right for you. You know, you're playing 17 games. You probably have a few that don't go right. And I'm going to look at the Denver game as a game that was a mashup of a good called game by Denver defensively and offensively, and a bad executed game by the Cowboys at times with drop balls and terrible throws by Prescott, who definitely did not look rusty. He was like robotic in this game. Like
Wow.
they just like
Robot or robot?
Robot, not robot.
Okay.
That's a South Side thing. You
right.
grow up with hearing you grow up with hearing words throughout the English language pronounced slightly incorrectly.
Sandwich,
the jewels. So that's all fine and well. We have an interesting, intriguing matchup this year.
Yeah, who you playing?
The Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, 325. Tune in. This will be the NFL game of the week.
Nice.
I'm not worried about the Cowboys scoring points because the Chiefs defense is a sieve. They're ranked towards the bottom of the league. That will be the issue. I think the issue is, as opportunistic as the Cowboys defense has been with turnovers and leading the league in that category, or maybe they're second now, whatever, they're right at the top. They're also been really susceptible in their secondary to big plays. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of receivers and a pretty good tight end over there named Travis Kelce. There's more than a few weapons you have to worry about with the Kansas City offense. Now, the other thing about the Kansas City offense is the Cowboys, even with injuries to DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory, still have a pretty fierce pass rush. And the offensive line of the Chiefs is new, basically, because of all the issues they had last year, and it doesn't always hold up. So, to me, the key in this game is twofold. Can the Cowboys stay in a pass defense, create pressure with the front four, and contain a mediocre KC running game by just keeping four men, like just using the four-man front and not overly committing to the run? If they can do that, that would be an easy victory. I don't think it's going to be an easy victory, but I think the Cowboys are going to win. They are my upset special this week because they're underdogs. And I'm giving them a 38-35 victory. I would totally bet the over in this, which I already did. Yeah, it's 56 or 56 and a half. It's a joke.
What's the spread?
2.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you're picking them to outright win it.
Outright win by 3. So they even cover the points there. It's plus 116. It's not even that bad. I mean, it's almost a pick 'em. So I'm picking them to win. I haven't picked them yet for an upset special. I thought I should.
Yeah, you should.
And I think that will. Again, I think it's going to be a fun game to watch for just for a casual NFL fan, or someone who doesn't really give a shit who wins either way. It should be a pretty fun game.
I will be tuning in.
Yeah, that it should be a high scoring affair. That's all I got for my Cowboys, except one final note is I did mention Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Ware, and DeMarcus Lawrence, sorry. And Gregory comes back after the Thanksgiving day, so sort of like they got that they play the Raiders on Thanksgiving. And at home, of course, because it's Thanksgiving. And then he comes back. Thanksgiving. And he comes back the next week. And that's when DeMarcus Lawrence should be coming back too. And it'd be the first time that the Dallas Cowboys defense is at 100%. And they've been playing this well at not 100%. But for the month of December, they should have everyone, which included last week a story that's often overshadowed by the Dak Prescott injury. But Tristan Hill, their first round draft pick in 2019, also had a season ending injury in that Giants game on October 11th,
Thanks.
2020. And he played his first game back last week. So I'm getting kind of excited at the defense has created a lot of pressure with all these injuries. But when you've got the two top guys, two of the top pressure guys in the league, both on each end coming back for the whole month of December,
That's going to help.
feeling pretty good. So
Nice.
now I am officially done clamoring on about my Cowboys.
Well, I kind of didn't mind because it was just delaying the inevitable that I have to talk about my Detroit Lions. So thanks for putting that off.
Didn't make me lose this week, but didn't make me win in my upset special, which moved me to
that's
6-3
right.
and 1 because I got my $5 pushback. So
Oh, congratulations. As the Lions are inching as painfully as possible to possibly their first win of the season, yet not quite able to get it done. This is a historic season. As the funniest thing that could possibly happen is for the Lions to actually tie a game before they can actually win a game this year. Everything about that result made me laugh. I didn't have high hopes necessarily going into Pittsburgh until I heard Ben Roethlisberger tested positive for COVID and would not be playing in the game. So I thought maybe that's a chance, as I'm not too familiar with Mason Rudolph, I believe is his name, and
yes,
as their backup. And I was not impressed by his performance by any means, but I didn't have a whole lot of faith because the Lions have not won in Pittsburgh in 66 years. Which is kind of hard to believe.
That was crazy. I did see a lot of that game.
I'm sorry.
I know. It was there was like a lack of scoring in the first games at one point. So like red zone was like on that game a lot, just for sheer misery.
Yeah, it was miserable. Everything about that. The weather is miserable. The teams are miserable. The Pittsburgh is trash. That is a bad team.
They are a bad team. That's why I thought,
well,
before I even knew Ben Roethlisberger was going to be out, that's why I saw it ripe for the picking.
Yeah.
They are not good.
Well, equally trash. By definition, the Lions are equally trash as they tied 16-16. The Lions had some bright spots in that game where they rushed the hell out of the ball. They ran for 220 yards against Pittsburgh's trash defense. DeAndre Swift had 130 of those yards himself, which was awesome. Unfortunately, Jared Goff he's just not an NFL quarterback. In fact, in the first quarter, he was 2 of 3 for -1 yards. And that sounds remarkable, but that's actually the second time he's thrown for negative yards in the first quarter this year alone. So he ended up with, I think it was 114 yards passing for the game, which includes 5 quarters that went in, or most of a fifth quarter as the game went into overtime. But actually his sack totals yardage gets knocked off of your passing total. So he ended up with 77 yards passing for the game, which I just thought was hilarious. The real story of the game is field goal kicker Ryan Santoso, which sounds like a totally made up name to me, like John Cocktoson or Art Core Valet or something. Ryan Santoso missed an extra point in regulation, then missed what would have been a game-winning field goal in overtime, which is one of the saddest kicks I've ever seen. I don't even think it ever got high enough to
oh my God. It looked like the ball had the air taken out of it.
I've never seen a kick that bad in a professional football game, but of course it happens in the Lions. What can you say? I'd rather, I think I have other tidbits about this game, but I'd like to bury this game much like, Coach Dan Campbell, Danimal Cannibal, as I like to call him, buried a hard drive that had all of the Lions' previous 8 games footage, buried it in the ground someplace near their practice facility, an entire hard drive with all their game film, because they wanted to turn the page after their bye week and losing their first 8 games. So they had the desired effect. They did not lose. last week. They tied the game. In fact, they have not lost in November. I think I brought up earlier. They're undefeated in the month of November, and we are getting into late November. They've only played one game though, as they do face the Cleveland Browns this weekend in what is the battle for the Edmund Fitzgerald Trophy.
Whoa, the wreck of it?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this. There's a hilarious trophy that's in the shape of a tanker ship with the two teams' helmets on it.
I have never seen this, no.
As their shipping communities, as both are Great Lakes cities. The famous wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, sung by Gordon Lightfoot, or is it the Gordon Lightfoot that's sung by Edmund Fitzgerald?
No,
another Seinfeld joke for you there. But I always thought they should. I think this is a canopic joke actually, but I always thought they should play for the Rust Belt, as they're the quintessential Rust Belt teams. They could have like a Rusty Championship belt for whoever.
That makes sense.
Cleveland is a strange team this year, as they've had a lot of injuries. So they should be much better than the Lions, but I'm not sure they are. But I'm not predicting a victory for the Lions by any means. So congratulations to the Browns for winning the Rust Belt, or the Edmund Fitzgerald Trophy. Prestigious. I think that's plenty of talk for the Lions this week. There is an ancillary subject I like to bring up every week.
You're starting to enjoy this subject matter now.
Former quarterback of the Detroit Lions, Matt Stafford, had another subpar, you might say, week, 2 in a row, where he's looked very familiar to Lions fans, but this is a whole new thing for the rest of the country, who's probably never spent any much time at all watching the Lions over the last 10 years. But Lions fans are very familiar with this Matt Stafford, who's showing his true colors, I believe. Another 2 interceptions this week. Another pick 6, actually. So he has now moved up to number 6 all time on the pick 6 list, tying Phillip Rivers. So I think he's got 5 more to go to surpass number 1 all time in Brett Favre. So he's got time to do that. He did it on a national stage, Monday Night Football, which is hilarious to me. But the real story of this game is Matt's kind of famous wife, Kelly Stafford, kind of infamous because she is quite the internet. I wouldn't call her a troll necessarily, but she is very boisterous on social media for years now about defending her husband and other things. And she was actually caught on social media throwing a pretzel at a fan in the stands during that game. And apparently there was an altercation of sorts. I'm not sure what happened, but the idea that Kelly Stafford is getting in the news for throwing a pretzel at a fan is hilarious. So congratulations to the Staffords. Congratulations to Kelly for getting her name in the media once again. She has subsequently apologized for making a spectacle of herself, but just another part of the circus that is the former Lion, Matt Stafford. So that's all I've got for. That's the last time I'm going to mention anything about the Lions on this podcast today.
You know, the funny thing real quick about the Rams though too, is like this is like a trend under McVay that they come out like gangbusters and everyone's proclaiming them like the best team in football, and then they just have like a mediocre second half every year. Their defense is supposed to be so great. Their defenses look like complete shit. They added Von Miller, and they got beat up pretty badly this past weekend. I mean, it wasn't. You got to take 6 points off the board on the defense because of the pick 6 again, but like it's baffling to me. And you know, the thing about McVay and in Goff's early success in the NFL, and I don't know if they changed this rule, but you know, he stands behind the quarterback and he will radio into the helmet the defense like they're in a 4-3 cover 2 zone before, because you have up until whatever, like
15
30
seconds.
15 seconds left. So he used to, when Goff was in his rookie year, and I think he just kept doing it, he would actually radio into him the defenses. Now,
yeah, that's how they got to the Super Bowl. That was pretty famous. But he would just tell Goff what was happening. So
yeah, so you wonder if some of that was happening with Stafford, or he doesn't do that because Stafford, should be able to obviously reads defenses. I mean, he's had a pretty decent career. Yeah, I mean, his numbers.
We got to move on.
No, he's got some numbers.
He does.
Numbers.
Pat Stafford.
So anyway, yeah. So I just think this is a vicious cycle with the Rams too.
Yeah, I mean they're so desperate beyond signing Von Miller. They traded for Odell Beckham. I mean they're throwing all their cards at this, so they might be familiar with the same phenomenon you're talking about, where they kind of fade.
Well, yeah, and it worked out for him because Robert Woods ends up injuring himself, season-ending injury in practice, torn ACL. I mean that's just bad luck there. Before we move on out of the NFC North, it's worth talking about the bye week Bears, because Justin Fields came out during the week, and I don't know if you had heard this, but he put Aaron Rodgers and the Packers on notice.
Whoa!
He came out and basically stated, "There's your reign of terror is ending. The Bears are coming, and it's over for you." Now this is pretty great, because the Bears are probably going to lose their 5th straight game to the Ravens this week. So there's nothing's better than following up some trash talking to the first place team in the division with a loss to the Ravens this week. So
why is he talking about the Pack? I missed this story completely. Why is he talking about the Packers at all? Why this week? What
I think it's probably just I think he was asked the question.
Somebody brought up the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers and thoughts on Aaron Rodgers and all that.
I've tuned out of Chicago media for the last couple of weeks because it's not baseball season anymore. That's really the it's tough here. It's tough here when the baseball season is not going on. There's 2 tough times. It's all winter, pretty much. But then there's also the point when football season kicks off in July and everyone's jacked up about the Bears on sports and they stop
radio.
talking about baseball when it's getting into critical times. I'm very familiar with that phenomenon.
Very painful. Brad Biggs, when things you never need to hear. That's one of them.
Yes.
So anyhow, so the Bears host the Ravens this week, and I know the Ravens looked pretty cruddy in their last outing, but I feel like they're going to just come in and take care of business. I feel like they have enough, as some announcers call them, exotic defensive schemes to confuse Justin Fields throughout the game. Of
course, Lamar Jackson will destroy their defense, as well as he will propel my fantasy team once again. And I think I can get into 2nd place maybe this week. The Surrender Cobras. So
you're still in this thing? I wasn't sure.
Okay, I'm over 500 now. Look out. Well, if that's all you've got.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, this might become a new segment as news comes out, as I was blindsided by this. Maybe lots of people knew this was coming, but last night I saw on social media a new Twitter account for something called the USFL. You might remember this from the mid 80s, and people in Michigan certainly do, as the Michigan Panthers were the very first champion of the USFL in 1983. The USFL is returning spring of 2022. So this spring, there's gonna be a new football league, and we've had a lot of these over the last few years. We've had was it the AFL or different ones that have come and gone and failed, and usually because they have poor TV contracts, or they can't get big TV dollars to support them for much longer than a year. Oh, the XFL was another one that's coming back, and that was scuttled by COVID. But I think that's still in the works. Vince McMahon's entry into professional football, but the USFL has a real shot to actually work for a couple of reasons. First of all, everyone's, at least any football fan that's over 30 years old, probably knows about the USFL at least. So it has some brand cachet there. It failed back in the 80s because Donald Trump was running the show at the time, which he's failed at many things. He decided USFL, a spring league, which was doing quite well, should go up against the NFL in the fall and be direct competition, which was the dumbest fucking thing he could have done, as the league no longer exists until last night. The USFL is returning, like I said, spring of 2022. There's going to be 8 teams. They have not announced who those teams are. They did announce that those games will all be played in one site. There's not like road games or multiple cities at this point. There's just going to be 8 franchises playing each other this first year. But in the second year, there'll be multiple. They'll have hometowns, home cities for each of these teams. So the real reason this is going to work, though, Fox owns the USFL. Fox is the broadcaster of the USFL. They own it. So they have a vested interest in making this work. And I think this is the strongest business plan of any of these new little leagues that have been propping up. So they, like I said, it'll be in the spring. So people are dying for pro football probably at that point. They're not going up against the NFL, which would be the dumbest thing you could possibly do. I think it's mid-April through mid-June is when it's going to be played. So it's kind of a soft spot in the professional or in the sports calendar. You just have baseball going on. It's after March Madness. So it seems to be positioned well. One thing that might pique your interest is the executive vice president of football operations for the USFL is none other than Daryl Moose Johnston, former Cowboy there.
Yeah, the good old Daryl Johnston.
The last time I heard, he's like a color commentary guy for Fox.
Still is, yeah.
Still is. Okay, so he's taken on 2 jobs, or maybe he's not going to be a commentator anymore. It's hard to say. But I thought you might be interested in that. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, they won't.
Oh, I lost you. You there?
Yeah, I don't know if it'd really be a conflict of interest or anything, right?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say on Daryl Johnston, I don't know that it'd be a real conflict of interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I think we're getting hung up here for a second. Just let's pause for a quick second here.
Can you hear me now?
I can. It was weird. I think it was like a tape delay thing almost.
Yeah, you cut out for a while, but I think you're back now. But I'm basically done. I'm just excited for the USFL's return as the only professional franchise in the state of Michigan that has any bit of respect was the Michigan Panthers. I've been a huge fan since I was 10 years old. I have Michigan Panthers regalia that I'll be featuring on this podcast. It'll give us possibly a reason to fire up this podcast again in the spring after football season is typically over. The Limp Ditkas can return with our annual draft coverage, but also covering the USFL potentially.
Exciting. I mean, I do wonder though. I wonder what this does to backups in the NFL. I mean,
yeah.
Did you read like any real details about it?
No, I just had the bullet points, the basic stuff. There will be more stuff, and I don't think they've released a whole lot yet. There will be more stuff that gets fleshed out over the winter. But
I wonder how this is going to affect the NFL, and it definitely will.
It had an effect, back in the 80s. They were starting to sign. They had enough money to sign huge players like Jim Kelly.
I remember
Walker
Jim
was
Kelly.
with the New Jersey Generals.
Yep.
They made a splash, and they were working until Trump ran it into the ground. But that's neither here nor there. That's all I've got for this week, unless you had anything else or Pete forgot.
No, Pete, I really seem to save that for baseball. So
there's a lot going on with baseball, as we'll be recording our 88th episode of Major League A-Holes in the Hole this weekend. So stay tuned, kids. So for the Limp Ditkas, you can catch us at limpditkas.com. You can get all sorts of crazy merchandise there. Hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, what have you. You can catch us on social media at Limp Ditkas. And you can catch this podcast anywhere you like to find a podcast. So with that, I am going to say this is Dagger Time. We out. Peace.
Peace.